Right, CBT. What do you know about CBT at this stage? Oh, one hand. I see that hand.
Yeah, it's the way people interpret events. It's how their feelings, the anxiety, and all that sort of stuff.
Right, so it's
Is that right?
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Can't be bothered
CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Can't be bothered today.
Yeah,
Was I right?
can't be bothered today. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Cognitive is the way you think.
Yeah,
Okay,
yes.
so it's your thoughts, it's your thought patterns. What's happening in here? Okay. For many people, it's not much happening in there. That's when you work with teenagers. But it goes about your cognition, about how you actually understand things. Okay. So it doesn't have to do with your intellect, or it happens with what's your thought patterns. So and the behavioral therapy is like, how does your thought patterns influence your behavior? Okay, so your thought patterns are being influenced by your behavior. And then the word therapy, we'll know what therapy is. So what we do with CBT is we're trying to address a person's behavior because of the way they think. For example, a person that's got OCD. So an OCD person's, because of the OCD behavior pattern, the thought pattern, let's say the world is full of germs, there's germs everywhere, I'm going to die because of all the germs. So we have to address the thought pattern, but we're also addressing their behavior. Their behavior would be to maybe not touch stuff, clean everything, going around with gloves on. So there's a great movie, I've told you, I've posted about this movie before. You guys can really go and watch this movie. Unfortunately, there's heaps and heaps and heaps of swearing, because one of the characters in it is also a Tourette's sufferer, and one of the things about Tourette's is that they swear a lot, they're uncontrollable swearing, and uncontrollable inappropriate stuff they say.
What movie is it called?
The Way Within.
The Way Within.
The Way Within, yeah, The Way Within. It's about a OCD sufferer, someone with anorexia, and then somewhat with anorexia, and then the Tourette's guy.
It's on YouTube.
No, not yet. It's a new movie. It's a new movie. Okay, so behavior therapy is we're looking at their behavior. Because of how they behave, we have to address their thought patterns, and that's what the therapy is all about.
So you're changing their behaviour to change their thought patterns. Is that right?
Yes, but you also need to figure out what is their thought patterns, so that you can change the behaviour. So it's we're addressing the different behaviours and thought patterns. So what is cognitive behaviour therapy? Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a short-term, goal-orientated psychotherapy treatment that takes a hands-on, practical approach to problem solving. So it is hands-on. There's some hands-on stuff you do. Okay? Its goal is to change patterns of thinking or behavior that are behind people's difficulties, so change the way they feel. So, CBT, or let's say you've got an OCD client. With an OCD client is you can go through a whole process of challenging their thoughts, challenging their behaviors. Why do you think you're going to die because of all the germs? Unfortunately, TV doesn't help a lot with it these days. All the ads about domestos and whatever you get show us all the germs, and you touch there, there's germs, you touch there, there's germs. For an OCD sufferer, that is like just petrol on their fire, because like it's on TV, it's like germs are everywhere. So you're going to have to challenge the way they think, and what works well with OCD is with an OCD person is actually a combination of CBT and narrative. where you externalize the problem, but you also have to challenge the way they think and the way they do stuff. One of the ways would also be like, and not day one, please, otherwise your client will never ever come back. But you're going to have to build rapport. You're going to have to build a lot of rapport. There's going to be a lot of sessions, a lot of talking, a lot of working through stuff with them. Maybe also looking at causes. Why, since when did you realize this? Was there a time when this wasn't part of your life? That sort of thing. And then also sometimes you have to do a lot of practical stuff, like taking your client out for a walk, touching dustbins, maybe let them go into a public toilet, touching door handles, that sort of stuff. So it's sort of a further challenge, but that's more to the end of the therapy. You can't do that in the beginning because you will totally freak them out. Right, so it's a bit of a process. It's a bit of a challenge the mindset. You have to really discover why. What's causing this? What's the thing behind why this client is in this issue? But this is just extreme. OCD is a bit extreme. But some other little things is CBT stuff is anxiety. We look at what causes your anxiety. I think one of the role plays we had years ago was person was about to leave their house, and as they left their house, an ambulance drove by. They ran into the house, locked themselves up in the house, didn't want to come out. Okay, so the behavior was, or let's say the ABC of CBT, the activating event was the ambulance that drove by with the sirens on. The behavior of the person was they went into the house, locked themselves up, didn't go out, and then the consequence was actually that they didn't go to the appointment. So ABC. So you're looking at what's happening in your client's life, how it's influencing your client's life, that sort of thing. Okay. Right. CBT is a type of talking treatment that focuses on how your thoughts, your beliefs and attitudes affect your feelings and your behavior. So it's about, we have to talk a lot about it, and I do prefer when we work with a CBT client to actually make use of a whiteboard, to draw stuff. It's like, write down what's your thoughts, what's your behaviors, what's the consequences. You're doing this. So in the movie I referred to, it's interesting, the guy that's got the OCD, he will open a car door 4 times before he actually gets in. They call it rituals. So OCD sufferers have rituals, all sorts of rituals. Wash your hands 7 times, dry your hands 6 times. There's all sorts of rituals. So, yeah.
How do they find the numbers? Because they'll all have a different number. Someone will turn the light switch off 3 times, but another one might do it 7. So how do they come to that number?
It's something that happens in there. It's a thought pattern.
Yeah.
And they believe that something bad will happen if they don't do that.
So the higher the number, is that the word?
No, it's not.
No.
It's not. It's just it's a thought pattern.
Right.
So something happened. Maybe something happened when they didn't open the car door a few times, or they got in a car and there was an accident, and now they believe that because of that they didn't do the ritual, there was an accident. So that's why we have to look at the thought pattern. The thought pattern has an influence on the behavior, and the behavior has a consequence, and that consequence might in many cases will be like alienation, where they actually just living a secluded life, or so that sort of don't go shopping, don't go out. So yeah, so there's a lot of things that happen. And teaches your coping skills for dealing with different problems. It combines cognitive therapy, examining the things you think, and behavior therapy, examining the things you do. So you have to look at how your client thinks and how that influences them, what they do. Okay. Sometimes people come to you and they do the strangest things. They do strange things, which in your eyes look strange. But when you start actually examining your client, actually talking to your client, you will realize that that's not so strange if you actually understand what their thinking is behind it. What's the cause of this? Sometimes it can be very traumatic experiences. Something like, let's say something simple. A person had an argument with a loved one. They didn't say goodbye to them in the morning. The loved one left. Car accident. The person dies. So, and they don't see in their way. They don't see that it was just an accident. They see I caused it because I didn't say goodbye to them. So then they go into this mode of every time make sure they say goodbye to everyone, that sort of thing. So there's a traumatic experience in most cases, but it can also be just a normal experience. But yeah, a belief system. Sometimes it's actually hereditary. Mom used to do it. You know, like the thing like, I don't know if you know the one, if you mess salt, you have to take salt and throw it over your shoulder because that might cause something, I don't know, whatever, you know, those belief systems we have, those superstitions. But some of these are not, some of these are my personal superstition. So I believe like if I go home and I don't switch my light on and off 4 times, then I might get someone break into my house. That sort of stuff. So we have to look at our clients' thought patterns. And then when you know the thought pattern, you have to challenge their thought pattern so that you can also challenge their behavior so that they can change. Okay.
So how would you challenge their thought pattern? In what ways? In the beginning?
You would look at situations, different situations. For example, you would say to them, can you remember a day when you didn't do this? Let's say, can you remember a day when you didn't open the door 7 times and nothing happened? Or that sort of thing. Can you think of how many people open a door without anything happening? That sort of, you have to do something like, almost, sometimes I feel it's a bit like what Dr. Russ Harris says about the reality slap. Sometimes you need to give them a bit of a reality slap, but in a very nice and kind and gentle way, by saying to them, but you know, let's try today not to do this, or let's try today not to do that.
And is that challenging too?
It's challenging. It is challenging because it causes anxiety. Okay, so this client has a lot of anxiety, and they believe that if they don't do this, their anxiety levels will go through the roof because bad things will happen. So that is where, and that's also where they need to feel that you as a counselor are really, really accepting what they say, and you are really on their side. So under no circumstance, if you work with a client, an OCD client, or a client that's got really strange behavior because of trauma, that you ever show judgment. Okay, don't, even if it's really weird.
So the CBTs have their like thoughts and that's like a coping mechanism.
Those things are coping. Their behavior is a coping mechanism, and we need to look at what their thoughts are so we can challenge their thoughts so that they can change their behavior. Okay, so we need to figure out how your client thinks, what your client thinks, because the thoughts are the ones that's behind. Okay, Stephen Covey says, seek to understand before being understood.
Who was that, sorry?
Stephen Covey. So seek to understand before being understood, which can be a life philosophy. It's like, I'm trying to understand you rather than I want you to understand me. I want to understand how you act. I want to understand why you react the way you do. I want to understand what's happening with you so that I can help you.
So that's like for a counselor's point of you. That's the way to
Yeah,
look at
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah. Because I want to speak to you and I want to help you.
Yeah.
Because I really want to help you. I want to help my client. Okay.
So, Corey, what about if, like those superstitions that I don't know, I think probably most of us have grown up with some, but walking under a ladder.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't like to do that, this. But what if, is that a big thing? Like, is that something that we should change in ourselves and challenge ourselves with those things too? Because that
Why
is
not?
a broken mirror, your 7 years bad luck.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've really worried
So
about
how many of
those
us?
things.
Just a question. How many of us have broken a mirror?
Yeah.
And how many of us had 7 years of bad luck?
I haven't had 7 years of bad luck and I've broken way too many mirrors.
Yes.
Sorry, can I just say, I used to, when I was very younger,
Yeah.
I used to have to hang my clothes with exactly the same coloured pegs.
Oh,
Because
yes.
in my mind, I
Yeah.
believed that if I
Yeah.
didn't, then this certain thing wouldn't work out. And I had to make myself stop doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do
Because it
too.
was becoming ridiculous. It then started going into other things like folding or whatever.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It just develops into a bigger and
Yeah,
bigger.
yes.
I had to make
yeah.
myself stop.
So there's a little picture,
Yeah.
a little graph.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Feeling, I feel low and I feel depressed. All right. Result is, or my thoughts is, I've let everyone down. They will be angry with me. I'm not a good friend. Okay. I feel low. I feel depressed. I'm still not good enough. Okay. And suddenly in their thought is, I let everyone down. I'm not a good friend. Who knows what the friends are thinking? But this is what you're thinking. Okay. The other friends might be like not fazed at all about this, but you like, I'm not a good friend. So then suddenly your behavior changes and it's like, I'm withdrawing from other people and I avoid my friends. So feeling, their thoughts and their behavior. So, and yeah, they feel worse again and in the process they're actually starting to distance themselves from people around them and in the process they actually just become secluded. And in today's society we have more and more people that's turning into living on my own because I can do everything online. I don't need to speak to people.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to speak to people. I mean, that's why we get situations now that they will find someone has passed away, but they passed away a few weeks ago and no one realized that. Because of the fact that people are so lonely and people have no contact. Like this one, feeling, I feel anxious. My thoughts is, I can't do this. What is wrong with me? Everyone is looking at me. And then my behaviors, get away from the situation, avoid it in the future. Situation is, I go to the shops. I'm in the shop, I'm in Woolworths, I feel anxious. Suddenly I feel like I just get anxiety, I feel anxious, everyone's looking at me, I leave my stuff, I run out, I realize I can't do this, everyone's looking at me, you don't even know everyone's looking at you, but I mean, you think. So, and then behaviors, I get away from the situation and I avoid it, I never go to Woolworths again.
Yep.
I do online shopping. I don't go where crowds are. It happens from time to time. It even happens for me that I'm in a crowd and I feel anxious. I feel I don't want to be there. But it's like, okay, fine. I want to go home now. But next time there's an event, I'll go there again. It's not as if like because of the one situation, I'm going to be like I'm never ever going to go there. So the same situation is.
I felt like that when I come to college.
Yeah.
First, because I didn't know things.
You didn't know what to do.
I
You
didn't
didn't
know anything, and
so-
I thought, oh God, people will think I'm so stupid.
Yeah.
When I go, and you toss yourself around there.
That's
So
actually like me at like gigs, concerts, because I like social anxiety and I don't like people being so close to me, so I'll freak out for the whole support acts and then the band, the light comes on and then all anxiety goes away.
Yeah.
But then the band stops and I'll go back to freaking out, have a panic attack and need to be taken out on the mosh pit.
So that's like, but the thing is, you have to challenge your thoughts.
yep.
You have to, and we know this. We are aware of this, so we can challenge it. We say, hey, I'm better than this. I can overcome this. But then you get other people that's like, I can't do this.
Yeah, they
Because
don't have the ability
They don't
to
have to,
change
and they don't have the
the
tools.
tools.
No.
Yeah.
So your role as a counselor is also to give them the tools.
Okay.
I mean, we like, it's like we're trying to create a toolbox for our clients and say, this is your toolbox. And in your toolbox there is a way to challenge your anxiety. There's a way to challenge your thought patterns. There's a way to, when things are not going well. And then if you really can't cope, there's my number, make an appointment and come and see me.
So it comes back to a lot, that thinking thing, doesn't it? Because that's what controls how we will behave. Because like my sister, she said, I would never go and do what you're doing at college. I would never do it. So it's not going, I'm going to try, I will never do it. I can't do it.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, most of the diseases these days, sicknesses is, I think about 80%, 85% they say, and it's under correction, is psychosomatic. Where everything starts in your brain, it starts in your mind. Depression, anxiety, all those things. Although there's a lot of like depression, anxiety, there's also chemical imbalances. So I don't say that all of depression is in your mind, but there is situations where it is actually in your mind where we can actually treat that with counseling. But the best way to treat depression is counseling and medication.
Yes.
Right. I have depression. CBT is very, very good for helping, not listening to self-critical voice, which is so damaging. CBT is based on the idea that the way we think about situations can affect the way we feel and behave. For example, if you interpret a situation negatively, then you might experience negative emotions as a result, and those bad feelings might then lead you to behave in a certain way. So if you experience something negative, suddenly in your mind it goes like in a negative spin and you behave negatively. So that is what we do sometimes. It's like you go somewhere, someone's nasty to you, or something's negative to you, or you go somewhere and you had a bad experience in the past about the same sort of thing. I'm not going to go there again. It's like I went to the Echo once. I didn't really enjoy the Echo because I felt like I can just stand still and people will move me along the way because there's so many people moving. I didn't enjoy it, and I have never been again.
And I hope that's a thing, is it?
Yeah.
So basically, CBT is teaching you to kind of challenge that ego thought pattern.
It's about challenging. Cognitive behavior therapy is about challenging. It's the one where we can actually challenge. You know, most of our therapies are very loving and caring and kind, like, I love you. You say, how do you feel about this? How's it going? Oh, that's so sweet. CBT is the one like, let's challenge you.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does that work for you? It helps a lot also when you do marriage counseling or relationship counseling. When a person says to me, oh my God, I come home and then I go and sit on the couch, and my wife's supposed to do the food needs to be ready, and if it's not ready then I'm upset and whatever. And then you as a counselor might say, but okay, cool, but how does that work for you? How does that work for your marriage? That's like, it's not really working for my marriage because I'm sitting in counseling, am I? But you can challenge with CBT because you need to challenge thought patterns, and you need to challenge those thoughts to go back. So why do you not help your wife when you come home? Because I work all day. Okay, but don't your wife work all day? She's at home, yeah. But who cleans your house? Who looks after the kids? Who picks the kids up at school? Who drops the kids off? Who makes the lunch? It's like, dude, your wife works more than you actually. But you need to challenge that. You need to actually make him aware of what his wife actually does during the day.
So make them aware of how they're behaving in the situation.
No. Make them aware of their thought pattern. Because his thought pattern is, my wife's at home all day doing nothing. So you make him aware of what his wife actually does. Okay. I don't want you to call me 10 o'clock in the morning because 10 o'clock in the morning is my busiest time at work. Okay, so don't say to your wife, I don't want you to call me 10 o'clock in the morning. Tell her why you don't want her to call you at 10 in the morning. Say at 10 in the morning I have this very important meeting. I'm getting ready for, let's say 10:30 I've got a meeting. 10 to 10:30 I'm preparing for this meeting. I can't really give you attention, but you're welcome to phone me at 12. Okay, so explain, chatting, thought patterns, behavior. People need to know what's happening. People need to know, and that's your role as a counselor, is trying to figure out what people think. Seek to understand instead of being understood.
So in those instances, as you're saying, that comes down to like a communication problem, are you also trying to encourage them to use their communication better to communicate what the problems are in their life to people?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff?
When we did the marriage counselling relationship week,
Yeah.
one of the issues we discussed was communication is the main issue for relationship breakdown. So people don't know, and stuff's happening in your mind because I can't phone him at 10 o'clock. Why can't I phone him at 10 o'clock?
And you feel
What's going
determined
on?
sometimes, yes, I'll bring it to you.
What's going on? What's going on? So we need to look at the thoughts, look at the behavior, and challenge the thoughts so that we can change the behavior. That's why Marilyn Monroe is there, because she was very depressed. Over time you might come to believe these assumptions until as an adult these negative thoughts become automatic. So your negative thoughts become automatic. It's interesting. We have neural pathways in our brain, and if we keep on hammering negative stuff, it's actually starting to make negative grooves in our brain.
Yeah. That's right.
So if someone always goes to this, let's say things are not going the way I want it to go, I'll just commit suicide. I'll just kill myself. They have no intention of doing it, but that's their I'm just going to go there idea. With time, that becomes their normal fallback, because that's the pathway. Things don't go the way, kill myself. Things don't go the way, kill myself. And maybe one day they'll do that. Because the negative parts become actually part of our brain. If you look at works that people like Dr. Caroline Leaf did on neuro pathways, and also if we there's a guy named Peter Rousseau at Christian Heritage College. He does awesome work also in the neurological pathway things. It's amazing to see how we actually train our brains, and how the more negative stuff we put in, the less new synapses develop.
That's right.
So the more we put negative stuff in, our brains don't regenerate.
No.
And that's what's happening when we sleep. So if you are negative, they develop and then they die.
It's like a child's brain.
Yeah.
A child that has been abused,
Yeah.
their neurons do not, they don't make new neuron
No,
pathways.
no. And negativity
Okay.
does the same. So it's my job, your job as a counselor to actually find our clients' ways of thinking and find their behavior and their thought patterns and try and change that. And some of the ways is we go back to family of origin. What happened in family of origin? What happened in school? What happened in your life? It's a journey. It's a journey. That's why counseling is not just a 5-session session and you're done,
No.
or a 6-session session. It's a journey. It's a long journey.
I'm just going on to the assessment that I'm doing, and one of the questions is how it's, I can't remember, but it's about school, family and peers, how it affects, or something. Is that your thinking,
Yeah.
what you've been brought up to believe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It does have that
Beliefs affect,
influence.
would you say?
Your core beliefs affect how
Oh, okay.
you perceive
Your beliefs,
sometimes
yeah.
your beliefs and everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It does does have an influence. Okay. So, who developed cognitive therapy? Cognitive therapy or cognitive behavior therapy was developed by Dr. Aaron T. Beck in 1960s while he was a psychiatrist at the University of Pennsylvania. Having studied and practiced psychoanalysis, Dr. Beck designed and carried out several experiments to test psychoanalytic concepts of depression. So that's how he actually started working with this in the field of depression. But you'll find that in the CBT, under the CBT umbrella, there are so many different sorts of therapies. ACT is one of them. ACT actually falls under CBT. So there's quite a few interesting therapies, cognitive behavioral therapies, under this one. So how does CBT work? Cognitive behavioral therapy is a form of psychotherapy that focuses on how our thoughts, beliefs, and attitude affect our feelings and behaviors. Our thoughts, our beliefs, and our attitudes. If someone has a bad attitude, interesting, how does their bad attitude affect their behavior?
Yeah.
Negatively.
Yeah. Well, with me, we never look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if I've got a bad attitude, you show up at work with a bad attitude. How is your day going to be at work?
Well, no one's going to want to go near you.
Yeah, no one's going to go near you. Everything will be wrong.
And everything you touch goes wrong.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Because you've already expected it to go
Yeah,
wrong.
you've started.
Yes.
You expect that.
Yes.
You expect
that's
it.
what that's what
Yeah.
it
You expect that. It's like, yeah, your attitude will determine stuff. I mean, it's like there's a lady in a complex that we live in, an old lady, and she's got the worst attitude in the world. She's a horror. She lives there. We live in a complex. We're not allowed to have dogs, okay? Or people have cats and that sort of stuff, but no dogs. But what's interesting about this lady is she lived there before the rule came in, so she's got a dog.
Yeah.
So she's the only one in the whole complex, and I think in our complex there's about 350 units. So it's a big complex. So she's like impossible. There's a speed limit. The speed limit in our complex
Well,
is
that's,
it's normal.
of course, there's a speed limit.
Yeah. So the speed limit in our complex is 10. So you drive 10. But her speed radar is obviously not set to 10. So if you drive past her house and according to her it's not 10, she actually storms at your car. It's like, can't you ever slow down? It's like, okay. So I actually one day wanted to ask her who stole her joy, because when I moved in, someone said to me, just beware of that lady. If you greet her, she'll never greet back. So the other day I was
She's
actually.
very lonely.
She's married.
Oh God.
So
Very
she's
lonely. That doesn't mean anything.
poor guy. But so the other day I was driving past her and again, and she went like this.
I would have gone.
So I went like this. And then I got the death stare. But she walks around in the complex early in the morning and takes photos of cars who are parking in the visitors' parking spots and that sort of stuff. So that's like the person. Like she's always one of them in a complex. But she's just unhappy. But when it comes to Christmas, her house is the best made up. She's got like lights flashing, and she's got. My kids say, I can't get it. How can she be like this and at Christmas she's someone else? But it's just strange. But what my thing is, what caused her to be so unhappy? Something caused her to be unhappy. So something happened there cognitively, and why is her thoughts, beliefs, and attitude that way? Because she's got a terrible attitude. You can wave at her when you drive past her, she'll never wave back. She'll never ever wave back. Yeah, so it's like she's never ever.
I'd stop the car, get out, give her a big hug.
Yeah.
Go in.
So that's just interesting, and CBT aims to teach you effective coping strategies for dealing with different problems through your life. and I have no idea why February 19, 2016 is there, but apparently something happened there.
It was
But
my birthday.
oh, okay, cool. Congratulations.
So,
Okay.
no, I was thinking, why on earth is it not there? But
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I don't know why I put a date in there, but there's a
Yeah.
date.
Oh.
So how does CBT work? We look at their thoughts, we look at behaviors, we look at attitudes, and we challenge them. Okay, so what does CBT treat? Cognitive behavior therapy is a form of CBT development initially for individuals with eating disorders, but now used with a range of problems including anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and anger problems. Because all those issues are actually issues with thoughts. So when you have a thought issue, the best way will be to use CBT, because that's when we challenge the thought. We've challenged the thought to influence the behavior. What is cognitive therapy? It is a type of psychotherapy developed by American Aaron Beck. Cognitive therapy is one of the therapeutic approaches within the larger group of cognitive behavior therapies. Okay, so there's a large group. It's like cognitive therapy is like this huge umbrella, and all these other CB therapies. We've got cognitive therapy, and then we've got under that one we have cognitive behavior therapy, and we have ACT, and we have so there's lots of. So when someone talks about cognitive therapy, it's not necessarily
No.
CBT,
No,
but it falls
won't.
under the group because they basically have the same sort of function.
Yes.
Each one just does something differently. So basically what happens is someone develop a therapy which works for them, they actually give it a name,
Yeah.
and it becomes just part of the group or fall under the group. Right. My favorite one of them all is the ABC model. The ABC model is a major aid in cognitive therapy, and Albert Ellis developed this one, and it's easy. ABC. A, activating event. B, behavior. C is your consequence. The ambulance story. The activating event was the ambulance drove by with alarms going on. Behavior is the person ran into the house, locked the door, didn't go out. The consequence was she didn't go and meet her friends because she didn't want to go out. ABC. So when you've got a client, you can easily do the ABC with them, right? What was the event? That guy made me upset. The B is I punched him. C, the consequence is I slept the night in prison. Okay, ABC. So each act, and that shows your client too that each action also has a reaction. There's a consequence to our thoughts and our behaviors. Okay, so that's why ABC is quite an easy one to do, and normally with ABC is you let your client actually come up with the ABC. What was the event? What caused you to do this? What was the influence? So the ABC is quite a good one. Is cognitive therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy the same thing? Cognitive behavioral therapy is a term used for a group of psychological treatments that are based on scientific evidence. All right. So that's the other thing which is important to know is that CBT has scientific evidence. There are many different therapies, but there's no scientific evidence that it actually works.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. So because emotions, thoughts, and behaviors are all linked, CBT approaches allow for therapists to intervene at different points in the cycle. Right, so we can intervene at different levels with CBT. So that's why I say it's like, I feel with a client, you can start with a PCT or a narrative or even ACT, and then if you realize there's place like there's a behavior that needs to be addressed, you can swap over to CBT. How long does it take for cognitive behavior therapy to work? And I will say very long. If you have CBT on an individual basis, you'll usually meet with a CBT therapist for between 5 and 20 weekly or fortnight sessions, with each session lasting 30 to 60 minutes. Exposure therapy. Okay, so exposure therapy is the more extreme part.
That's where you're getting them to go into the restroom.
Yeah.
And all that sort of
We
stuff.
we touch stuff. We touch. So we take off the gloves and we actually go and we touch dustbins and stuff. Exposure therapy sessions usually last longer to ensure your anxiety reduces during the session. The therapy may take place in a clinic. So it will always take place, obviously, in your room, your counseling room, and then. But also, when you're going to do exposure therapy, you need to warn your clients. Say, like, in 2 weeks' time, we're actually going to go out and we're actually going to challenge, we're going to touch stuff.
Yeah, because then
So-
they're aware and
Yeah,
they're able
because
to.
they're not going to come and then we say, now we're going to go out and touch stuff, and then
Yeah.
you're going to cause extra anxiety.
Yeah.
Because the idea is we've been trying to reduce our clients' anxiety, and we don't want to worsen their anxiety by forcing things onto them. So we need to actually take some time and prepare our clients for what we're going to do with them. And what is a behavioral therapist? Behavioral therapy is an umbrella term for types of therapy that treat mental health disorders. This form of therapy seeks to identify and help change potentially self-destructive or unhealthy behaviors. So self-destructive behaviors like eating disorders, depressions where they go suicidal, self-harm, those sort of, and even where they actually get to a place where they actually take themselves out of the community, where they're living in a like a hermit state, the focus of treatment is often on current problems and how to change them. So we're focusing on the now. Okay, because we're not going to worry about what happened in the past. We are actually now focusing. Your problem is that you don't go to the shops. So we want to help you now to start focusing, to change your behavior, that you can go to the shops and do things. ABC model again. Activating event, your belief system, negative thoughts or cognitive distortions, the way we think about stuff, and then consequences, emotional feeling negative, interpersonal withdrawing, snapping at others, that sort of stuff. So you can always ask your client, what's the consequence? When you feel like this, when this happens, what's the consequence of that? There's another one. So you can see there are a few models. So you can this one's got a D also added, but it's sometimes nice to have a model like this, which you actually give to your client, which they can actually fill out and actually take with them. Right? You can even give them spare ones, where they can actually, in their own time, when an event happens, they can actually go back and they can do some self-reflection on this and say, what happened now? What was the activating event? What caused this whole thing to happen? Decatastrophizing. In cognitive therapy, decatastrophizing or decatastrophization is a cognitive restructuring technique to treat cognitive distortions such as magnification and catastrophizing, commonly seen in psychological disorders like anxiety and psychosis. So, which with this one is we try to show our client that it is not such a catastrophe as they think. Right, so they go into this anxiety disorder, and you need to actually, it's like my mom didn't come to fetch me. She's late, so I think she was in a car accident. She's probably in the hospital. She's probably dead. The whole thing. And my dad was probably my dad was probably with her, so my dad's also now dead. And they just caused this whole catastrophe about the whole thing. Or I forgot my stove on this morning. I bet you when I get home my whole house is burned down, and I bet you the fire spread to the neighbor's house, and the lady sleeps late, so she's dead, so I'm going to be arrested for murder.
Wow.
Okay, so you need to decatastrophize whatever your client says. So it's a behavior in it. So you need to, again, thought pattern. You need to
Wouldn't you break
challenge.
it down, no?
Yeah, you need to break it
Yeah,
down.
you
You
have
need
to,
to,
yeah.
okay, but so, what tells you this will happen? How sure are you? What if your mom was just left work late? You need to, with this one, I know we don't give advice and we don't make suggestions, but
No.
but with this one, we actually have to do stuff to change their thought pattern. So you have to,
rationalizing.
yeah. So you need to, because they're in total chaos, their whole way of thinking is chaos. So that you need to make it more, you need to calm them down. So with this, sometimes you also need to do some breathing exercises. So catch up on some breathing exercises, learn some breathing exercises, calming down exercises, because they need to just not see everything as this huge catastrophe. Okay. Decatastrophizing is a cognitive restructuring technique. Interesting restructuring. So you need to create structure in their belief system. Okay. Reduce or challenge decatastrophic thinking. The term decatastrophizing was coined by Albert Ellis, who developed REBT, but is a technique is eventually at home with the CBT model. So there's another model thing which you can use to do that.
Can we get a handout of their slides?
You can get all these slides. I can email them to you. You're welcome to have them all. And these are models these are things that you can actually copy and paste and put it in your toolbox of obsessive compulsive disorder. We talked about OCD before. The treatment found to be the most effective in successfully tackling OCD is a special form of talking therapy called CBT. Medication may reduce anxiety enough for a person to start and eventually succeed in this therapy. So it's just another model on how OCD works. I've actually covered a lot of OCD anyway today about it, but this is one of the most effective ways of actually dealing with OCD is with CBT. So another explanation of OCD, and then also a nice worksheet for someone is what made me vulnerable in the first place. You can write down a few stuff that they can experience. What's my triggers if that happen again, and the problem. Okay, so because we all have triggers, all our clients will have triggers. Anxiety there'll be a trigger for anxiety, especially anxiety, OCD. There's triggers, and it also helps to get your client to be aware of this trigger.
So you're saying when they do the OCD, when they do their ritual thing, because my son does it each time before he goes to bed, is there something triggering him to do it, or is he just doing it now?
He'd do it because there was a trigger.
There was a trigger.
Something happened in the past that made him do this. Okay, so but mostly with anxiety, there's a trigger.
Okay. Oh, the anxiety.
The anxiety,
trigger.
there's
Okay.
a trigger, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. Treat system, flight or fight. When we feel in danger, we either, there's actually more, we fight, we flight, we freeze, or we freak.
Oh.
The latest one is freak.
Oh.
So fight, flight, freeze, or freak. So some people freak out. I normally freeze.
Same.
So like, and then afterwards I realize, what would I have done? But fight, flight, freeze, or freak. And there's just this picture just shows what's happening in your body with them, and what different hormones are actually excreted in your body with the different things that's happening. Thoughts are not facts.
Oh, okay.
So, and that's something that we need to also get our clients to realize, that some of the things that they think is not actually the facts. Unfortunately, we get lots of people with, even these days, one big issue these days too, especially people with anxiety or people that are hypochondriacs, is the issue also with the Google, Dr. Google.
Oh God, my daughter.
Because unfortunately Dr. Google brings up the most serious cases first. So you type in, I have a chronic cough, and it will come up that it's lung cancer in
Yep.
4th degree.
Yep.
So and you can start planning your funeral. So just be aware that Dr. Google is not always so good for our clients, especially if you've got hypochondriacs, because you've got a little spot on your foot and it's some disease that's going to eat up all your flesh.
Meningitis.
Well, meanwhile, it's just a sunspot.
Yep.
So just always make sure that your clients knows that. Check it out first. Go to a doctor. Your thoughts are not the facts. What you think is not always the facts. Right? I'm not going to go there because people think I'm silly. They don't like me. Are there any facts that they tell you they don't like you? No. How do you know that? I just know. It's like, why? It's like, the fact is like, no one told you they don't like you. No one, every time you go there, people are actually friendly towards you. So it's not the facts. So there's a lot of things we need to just talk to our people about it. Thoughts, feelings, behavior. So our thoughts influence our behavior influence our feelings, our thoughts influence our feelings influence our behavior. It's just a vicious circle. So if we can get to work on that one and change a bit of our thoughts and challenge our clients' thought patterns, things might be much easier. But as I say, it's not a quick process. As I say, it's about 20 sessions.
Can it be more than that?
It can be more than that. It can be more than that. Okay, that's an OCD diagnosis chart. Treating anxiety. I'm not going to say much about it, but the great thing about it is we need to look at the thoughts again about what's causing your anxiety, what are the triggers for your anxiety, and again we challenge the thoughts, we challenge the behaviors, and we actually become aware of the triggers. If your client know what the triggers are, they can also avoid the triggers, or they can be aware of the triggers. Okay. The person is confronted with anxiety, reducing situation, and leads to an uncomfortable sense of worry and agitation. So it's just how our anxieties go up and down in different situations. And also triggers, what are your triggers? Because people, especially people that struggle with anxiety, there are specific triggers. And you sometimes need to get your client to actually reflect on triggers. Because like, I don't know what
Yeah,
caused my trigger.
because you know, when you do have anxiety attacks, sometimes they just happen.
Yeah.
And there is actually a trigger, you're just not aware of it.
Yeah. Our clients mostly are not aware of triggers. So we need to actually show them what the triggers are. Okay, education about the Yates-Dobson law can help a client to understand why they have anxiety. How is it hurting them, and how a certain amount of anxiety can be beneficial. Right, so we all have a bit of anxiety. And they say it's beneficial because adrenaline and all those stuff in our bodies. But when it gets too much and it starts to control your way of thinking and the way you do things, then we have a problem. You can all Google the Yates-Dobson law, and it states that too little or too much anxiety are both harmful, and that a person reaches optimal performance on a task with a moderate level of anxiety. Someone who has no anxiety has little motivation to keep up with their responsibilities, and someone with too much anxiety will attempt to avoid the situation. So we need some anxiety. I mean, you need some anxiety to say, like, I want to finish my course. Okay, so, but if it's like too much anxiety, it's like you don't show up because it's just too much.
Too much, yeah.
or perform poorly due to their symptoms. However, someone in a moderate level of anxiety will be motivated to prepare, concentrate, and do whatever is necessary for their particular situation without becoming debilitated or avoidant. My best subject from school was history, because I was so scared of the teacher. I was really scared of
So you
it.
didn't like the subject, you were just scared.
I
of the
loved the
teacher.
subject, but I was scared of him. I was like so scared of him because he would always give us a hiding. If you miss like one sentence, you had to say the word, the book off by heart, you know, like the word off by heart. And the moment you get stuck, he'll hit you. But in the end, I got a distinction. So
Yeah, we used to
Very
get people
motivated.
after.
so it's like there was high anxiety, but it was also high motivation.
Yeah.
But if there's too much anxiety, we freak, because the kids that couldn't cope with history dropped the subject, and then the kids who coped with history actually got distinctions. So it's a two-level thing, right? So, well, that's the end of CBT, and I really hope that you have actually learned something of value, of heaps of value. I don't know why I built such a huge one. So there's relaxation skills too. So I'll try and
Please, yeah,
I'll try and print it out for you, or I will give you the PowerPoint, which you can just look at and work with it, and I will upload this on YouTube so you can watch it again with your notes in the future. Thank you.